Good morning, Hop Nation. Today, I'm very excited to have a very special guest, Mike Michalowicz, with me. He's a best-selling author and entrepreneur. And welcome, Mike.
Corey, I'm pumped to be here. Thanks so much for doing this.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I know you're a guy in high demand right now. And for the benefit of my listeners, I just want to give a little bit of bio on Mike. Mike's an author, entrepreneur, lecturer. He's the author of a number of books: Clockwork, Profit First, Pumpkin Plan, Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. He has a new book coming out in April, which we have another podcast we're going to be doing with Mike. So we're doing a double shot of Mike over the next couple podcasts, and going to focus just on the new book coming out, Fix This Next. What I love about his work and what he does is his mission is eradicating entrepreneurial poverty. And believe me, we will be asking and addressing that today. His book, Profit First, is definitely in my top 5 recommended business books. And he's written in the Wall Street Journal. He's been on MSNBC's Business Rescue, and he hosted a reality TV program called Bailout. This is an impressive resume, Mike. What do you want people to know about you?
Well, I think also the struggles, right? So I hear a resume like that, and to me, it sounds like I'm a little bit full of myself and this a little bit of arrogance. And the reality is, I've had those business successes. All that stuff is true. More of my life has been the struggles. I've built businesses that were never profitable. I've lost all of my wealth twice. I lost my house once. I started a business that was a angel investing company, and it was a train wreck. I call myself the angel of death now because I had no idea what I was doing. So I think, I want people to know that I've experienced what I believe is the entirety of the entrepreneurial journey, the highs and the deepest lows. And but it has set me on a pathway. I'm committed. I'm a full-time author now, devoted to serving entrepreneurs in that process or that mission, if you will, of eradicating entrepreneurial poverty.
Well, I love that because I have a similar path and recently had something that was very successful then blow up. So to hear that you had a similar path, and I know for anyone that's ever been an entrepreneur, they know that it's not easy. Like these one-off outliers of people who, it's all rainbow and unicorns is a fallacy, and if anything, luck. So I want to get at kind of what are some of the things that you've learned through the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. And I always love hearing the founder's story. And I think we've talked a bit about that, but how did you move from entrepreneurship? What was your background? Yeah. How did you get into entrepreneurship, and then what you're doing now?
So my launch into entrepreneurship was unexpected. I wasn't ever intending to be. I didn't grow up entrepreneurial per se, and I never had the dream of owning a business. I wanted to get a job. I wanted to graduate college and get one job for the entirety of my life. That's what I was raised. That's what my father did. So that's what I expected. I just couldn't get the job. I got some work, but it wasn't the dream job by any stretch of imagination. I was working at a computer store. And one night, this is not a business tip, but this is just how I did it. One night I went out for drinks with a buddy from work and started to lament the business owner of the computer store. He sits in the back smoking cigars, collecting money, while I sweat like a madman trying to push printers and PCs. I'm the one carrying this business, is what I thought. And it's amazing what liquid courage will do for you, Corey. 4 or 5 pops in, I'm like, I'm going to start my own freaking business. So it was liquid courage that triggered me to start my own business. I left this rambling voicemail for the boss. I'm going to start my own business. And the next day, with some sobriety around me, I was like, well, that was a mistake. I got my job. And the boss was like, get out of here, kid. You good luck. And he goes, and if you try to compete with me, I will crush you. I'm telling every other computer business in this area what a horrible person you are. So that's how I started. Ignorance and drunken stupor. And it's interesting. when I started a business, I was 23. My wife and I had our first son, and I got started early in life. I had 3 mouths to feed now, and no clue what I was doing. Fear became an extraordinary motivator to wake
Yeah.
up in the morning and get stuff done. And even though I was clueless, I was relentless because I had to be. And it took time. It took about 8 years, but ultimately that business was a multi-million-dollar business, and I was able to sell it to private equity. Um, I I think the journey of an entrepreneur goes through multiple stages, and I noticed myself. It started off with fear, and I think fear is actually an amazing tool, but only for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Fear will get us up at 5 in the morning, work until 5 o'clock the next morning. But at a certain point, fear becomes stress. When
Yes.
fear transferred to confidence, when I started to realize, oh, there's systems at play here. It's not about me carrying the business on my back. Actually implementing systems and trying to build repeatability, did I start getting some serious momentum. And then after that, confidence turned into aspiration. Aspirations like, I can change the world. Entrepreneurship is the ultimate platform for that. And the final thing is to wrap up, you asked how I became an author. After building and selling a couple companies, I started this third business I told you briefly about. It was a disaster. It was a angel investing company. I was horrible at it. I lost all my wealth. I lost my house. I lost my possessions. My wife and kids didn't leave me. That's the only thing I retained. Thank God. And I found when we're at the rock bottom of our life, however that experience is, there's a great question to ask. And it works with another question. There's a question out there that we all have heard. If you had all the money in the world, what would you do? It's a very good aspirational question.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is it presupposes we have to have all the money in the world in order to make that reality. Well, there's another complementary question, which is when you have no money, what's the vocation that you desire most to drive an income for yourself? And when the vocation lines up with the dream, well, now we have what I believe is a calling. And so
That's
I said,
magic.
I always wanted to be an author. That was my dream. And then when I had no money, I said, I want to be an author, but I'm going to make money at this. This will support my lifestyle, and I'll change the world doing it. And that was 12 years ago now. And ever since, I've been a full-time author.
That's awesome. And, from being an author, obviously there's spin-offs. You get the speaking gigs, you get other engagements, and you've developed other businesses because of your authorship.
Yeah. That was fascinating. And I'm surprised that it seems like a portion, maybe many other authors, at least in the business or nonfiction genre, don't do what I did. And what I did was I built a licensing model. So I would develop and write a book, Profit First being probably the most popular one right now. And I'd write Profit First. And then I found, in this case, a partner, but licensed it to the company, formed an LLC, and Ron, my business partner, is the leader for that organization. Clockwork, another one of my books, I found a third-party company that wanted to acquire the rights, and they license it, which means there's a fee plus ongoing revenue.
Passive income.
Passive income. And the most important thing, and so they are doing the work and they're deriving great benefit because I'm doing the marketing. My job is sell more books. And that's what I want to do anyway. So I'm selling the books as much as I can. The books generate interest for these businesses. So they have built in marketing. They deliver the service and rinse and repeat. So it's been a tremendous win, selfishly for me, but I believe it's been a tremendous win for every partner I've had involved.
Absolutely. And you're successful as an author when the book is no longer the brand, when the author becomes the brand that drives books and other entities. And that's where you've achieved real success as an author. And one of the businesses I've owned is actually a publishing company.
Oh, neat.
As well as, been a co-founder and started a business incubator. So the idea of intellectual property and licensing, the Stephen Key model, as well as the author side, you're speaking to my heart, and you've done it the right way. Like if that's the dream I have, and I'm all about trademarks and that as well.
Yeah. I really admire Tim in the business space, Tim Ferriss, Malcolm Gladwell,
Yes.
Seth Godin. These are all authors who their name, I hear the name, Malcolm Gladwell, he recently came out with Talk to Strangers. Malcolm Gladwell has written a new book. I'm like, I don't care what it's about. I don't care except for one thing, that Malcolm Gladwell wrote it, because I so much admire his style, his thoughtfulness and his approach. And I was not disappointed yet again. And this is true for Seth Godin. I feel the same with Tim Ferriss.
Yes.
When they produce books, they've become those authors who are bigger than the title names. I admittedly have a long way to go. I think for me, Profit First has achieved some notoriety and continues. But just yesterday, 2 days ago, I was at a conference, and there must have been 300-400 people there. I was not speaking; I was actually an attendee. And someone came up to me. He's like, I think I recognize you. Like, did you read Profit First? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And they're like, wow, oh my God, that book changed my life. And no one recognized me or even knows my name, except for that one person. But at the end, the host is like, hey, any Profit First fans here? And all these hands goes up. He's like, I don't know if I should say anything, but the author's here. And people are like, who? What? So it's just, it's funny, not funny, but I feel so blessed that my at least that one book has hit the level of exposure that people recognize it, but they're definitely not yet recognizing me. And that's cool. That's cool. It's part of the journey.
No, I love it. And it has been something that really resonated with me as, again, one of those easy to implement tools that's based on so many other foundational principles, but you've captured something that's simple yet has great depth and that to it. So people actually do shit with it.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, when I was writing Profit First, I noticed first in myself, and every book I've written, because I still own businesses today. I'm an equity owner in about 4 businesses. And what I noticed is in the past, my businesses were never profitable, even though one of the fundamental reasons I started my businesses was for financial freedom, AKA profit. And it wasn't happening. And then there was a study I heard that 83% of small businesses are on check-to-check survival. It's a cash, they say 50% of businesses go out of business in 5 years or whatever they say. And it's all cash flow. So I'm like, what's wrong? How can't we figure out the one reason we start the business? Why can't we figure out that part? And that's when I realized the foundational formula that we're taught, it's in every accounting book in the world, tells us that profit comes last. It's, the foundational formula is sales minus expense equals profit. And while it makes logical sense, it doesn't work with our behavior. So when something comes last, it's human nature to say it's insignificant. If you don't like your friend, I put them, some person, I put them last. I'm going to call them last. If you adore your friends, you probably say you put them first. If you had a health scare, you wouldn't say, I'm going to start putting my health last. You'd say I put it first. Mm-hmm. So that was the realization that we're told profit comes last. And we even give it vernacular. Our common vernacular is bottom line. Like bottom feeder. Is that a good thing? Year end. All the things saying delay. So what I did with Profit First is I flipped the formula. It's sales minus profit equals expenses. And in execution is every time we have inbound revenue into our business and we post a deposit, you take a predetermined percentage of that money and allocate it toward profit. It's at the most functional, simplistic level. It's literally that easy. It's the pay yourself first principle applied to business.
I love it. And, in an age where a lot of people are driven by ego and this mantra of growth.
Yeah.
Well, you have seen this millions of times, as I have, in that people love to talk about the top line because that's the biggest number, right? And it's ego and efficacy building. But, you take a business and keep growing it, and the more and more I've found, until I found your book, and I'd spent 12 years in the financial industry as a broker. So I should have clued into this, but and not taken my own advice probably. But that profit and what do you want is such a false way of doing it, and growth for the sake of growth. And it combines with what's that lifestyle and what are you wanting in that profit, and then build around that, and not going out spending the farm and leveraging, which can blow up, with the debt loads. So I'd love to hear more comments on that. And then, let's transition to how the money and focusing on that actually gives us flexibility and some of those principles in Clockwork as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. So that top line thinking, it's pervasive. It's everywhere. And it's perpetuated by media. I don't mean that negatively. It sounds like almost like a political statement, but I walk through airports all the time, and I see all the covers of magazines like, this company has grown so much, that company has grown so much. Look at the sales are up, and it is an ego number. I think what people don't know or don't appreciate is that sales directly translates to stress. And here's what I mean. The more sales an organization has, the more responsibility that organization has. If I sell twice as much this year as I did last year, I have twice as much I need to deliver to my clients as last year, right? Because a sale is an obligation, so it puts organizational responsibility on me. It's more sales, more responsibility. Small businesses, the owner is usually the one that is the choke point. They're delivering on that in some capacity. They're managing it, overseeing it. They're acting in some superhero capacity for the business. Mm-hmm. So that sales, which is organizational stress, then translates directly to stress on the owner. So as the business gets bigger, we get less sleep, we're pulled in more places, and it relates to more and more stress. Sadly, the vast majority of business owners default to what I call instinctual thinking for business, which is very dangerous. Actually, when we talk next week about Fix This Next, I'm going to talk about the dangers of our gut. Even though we like to say we trust our gut, I used to brag about that. Now I realize how dangerous it is. Well, our gut will say, we got to sell more. Things aren't, we don't have any money left over. We need to make more money to take more money. We got to sell more. And it actually enforces and impacts the business with more organizational stress, more stress to the owner. And the cycle gets worse. We use soft terms like leverage. That's a soft term for acquiring debt. So we say, we're going to take on debt to facilitate growth. Leverage sounds very good because you can picture a lever and that you're really moving big mountains with small amounts of money. But what happens is we take on this debt, and there's no commitment to ROI. There's no understanding. It's just like, if we do that marketing, the marketing will work. And it's very, at the best, hypothetical thinking, and it's not calculated. True debt leverage is where I say I borrow $1, and a month from now I know I'm getting back $2, and I have a 99% surety of it because I have measurements. That's what true leverage is, but it's become bastardized, and we just say, I'm going to lever things up because it feels good. So most businesses are focused on sales. This causes organizational stress. The balance, the necessity for organizational health is profitability. So much so that when I see people, at a networking event and stuff, everyone talks about the top line, and they don't necessarily say how much sales you have going on. Maybe too piercing of a question. Sometimes they'll say, how many people work at your shop? How big is your office? Right. Which is the same question. It's the same how big is it question. And so I used to participate. I want to say I have $1 million. If you had $2 million, I'd say, I'm going to make sure I get $3 million next year, because it was this, fight to the top. Now I simply flip the question. When someone's like, hey, how big is your business? I say, well, isn't it really about the health? I mean, let's ask how healthy your business is. So I like talk about the health of my business. How healthy is your business? And that's when people are like a deer in headlights. Like, I have to go now. And I used to be the same way. But I think the question needs to be about health. I am more impressed by a business that does $100,000 in revenue and the owner taking home $90,000 a year than a company that does $2 million in revenue and the owner taking $50,000 a year. I want to know the healthy organization, the sustainability of it. I want to know the profitability.
I love and resonate so much with that, having transitioned from owning a private college and having everyone blow sunshine up my ass, but making all those mistakes we've already talked about and having shit blowing up and the stress and no time to really simplifying. And it's me and my business partner and, really our overhead and the lifestyle that you can create. And my net is far greater. So, and it took one, getting kicked in the ass, and then,
sometimes it does.
Coming across books like yours, and actually a shout out to Nicole Jensen from Leaders of Transformation, and Donnie Boven, who had you on his show and talked to you out.
Recently. I know Donnie very well.
Yeah. And he said, you were by far the best guest. And that's when I was like, okay, what the heck? I got to find out more about this Mike Michalowicz.
Well, he's a very generous, nice man.
it was fantastic. And since then, kind of immersed in things. And for the listeners, you need to get profit first. And if you do that, you will start getting the other books and just changing the way you do business. And honestly, not only will it be good for your business, it will be good for your life, your relationships, and everything else. And I want to thank you at this stage, Mike, because it's in this moment that I'm realizing, the profound impact that's had, in a year that's been that turnaround. And I'm sure it's that sort of story that keeps someone like you going.
Oh my gosh, I am so blessed. So I receive, I would say, an email every 10 to 15 minutes now, 24 hours a day, every day for years, of someone that's read Profit First or in my other books and talk about the impact it's had on them. And the greatest stories are the ones where marriages are saved and businesses are resuscitated. I don't think we really appreciate the damage financial insecurity can place upon us. I also want to acknowledge, and I email people back, and just want to acknowledge to you too, is, I'm very happy and humbled and proud and honored to have written the recipe, but I'm not the cook. Like, everyone that's executing on this has taken a cookbook and actually implementing it. That's the harder part. So the discipline of sticking with it and working on that recipe and cooking what you've cooked up, that's what we need to recognize. So kudos to you and everyone that's achieved the results they wanted to.
Absolutely. And being able to do something with it, because how many times have we went to an event or read a book and it has great content, but nothing's done with it. And sometimes it's just too complicated. Like, as I'm sitting here, I was telling you before we went on the air, I'm in the middle of my PhD comps, and, my book that I've been writing and the whole HOP model is fairly complex, which can make it pretty difficult for people to implement. And that's why we have the peer advisory groups. It's the only way that under the old model, we've been able to do that, So I'm looking at people like you or the Robin Sharmas of the world of taking this collective knowledge and how to get that out. Now, before we went online, we were talking about how you just came off of a 4-week holiday with a family, and that's something that you've worked into your business and life, and is the premise around Clockwork. So tell us and the listeners a little more about that.
Sure. So Clockwork, that book I wrote, and the subtitle is Design Your Business to Run Itself. And I believe, actually, when it comes to what I call entrepreneurial poverty, that the greatest form of poverty is not financial poverty, but it's time poverty. I, too, devoted so much time in my life to working into the night, through the night, and sacrificed time with my family, with my loved ones, with life itself, my friends. It was all about, I need to get more work done. And actually, I was bragging about it. I consider myself a workaholic, and thought that was something to be proud of, was to be a workaholic, which...
I was guilty of that myself, so I'm glad you said that.
I think it's the ultimate badge of shame now. It's a big W on my chest, because workaholism means that we're extraordinarily good at not being productive, that we can't drive results, because we simply say, well, I'm going to work till midnight again tonight or till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll get this done. And then we're just off on tangentials, as opposed to building organizational efficiency. And that's what Clockwork is about. Clockwork is the goal of no longer being a superhero for our business, but being a super visionary for our business, to have clarity on the outcome we want and coordinate the resources around us, which is, of course, our people, part-time or virtual or full-time, whatever you have. It's your vendors, it's your technology, it's even your clients themselves, organizing them in a fashion that drives toward the vision and outcome you intend to achieve. Well, one of the big elements in this concept of this fortification is we need to break the pattern of thought of being a superhero for our business. We don't use the term superhero that often, but that's kind of what we do. We swoop in, save the day. The term that most people use is entrepreneur. And as much as I love what the word originally stood for, I'm starting to become more and more disappointed that it's associated with hustle and grind, which is the antithesis of organizational efficiency. Work your tail off is not what we're looking to do.
No.
So what our job is as a supervisionary is to have clarity on the outcome, organize the resources. The kind of snap we need in our head to make that mental shift is to remove ourselves from the business. And I'm saying physically and digitally. So what I challenge people to do in the book, among the steps that facilitates transition, is commit to a 4-week vacation. Pick about 18 months out. It's a year and a half. I found that's a good period of time, a ramp, if you will, a runway. Book a 4-week vacation where you will have no access to the business. Have someone, one of your assistants or whoever that person is, change the passwords on your email, your Facebook, into your network, no access. What will happen the next morning, if you commit to that 4-week vacation, there'll be this, oh shit moment, what did I just do? Then it's like, if I keep on doing the work, I'm going to ramp up as we get closer to the state. And then all of a sudden the business is going to collapse because I'm the only person doing this stuff. Now we got to think about doing what's called true delegation. Delegation is not the assignment of tasks, but it's the sounding of outcomes. Here's what we need to achieve. Here's our best practices. Cool. You're now responsible. As you manage this, if you come against challenge to questions, you got to figure it out. As long as you achieve the outcome, we're fine. And we need to start pulling ourselves away from the office.